Have you ever felt that the silence between you and someone else became louder than words? Is there a moment when everything starts to fade and you find yourself facing something deeper inside of you? In this video, we will reveal the secrets of this profound silence and show you how this moment can be a real opportunity for transformation. Keep watching until the end, because there is something I will tell you that will be very important for you. Don't go away. The surprise at the end of the video will change everything you know about your relationships. There is a moment in every human connection where the silence starts to speak louder than words, where attention slowly dissolves and the tenderness that was once constant becomes absent. It's the moment when everything that was built seems to vanish, and it is here that attachment is born. Not because the other person has left, but because something inside you refuses to let them go. You are not losing the person. You are losing the feeling of being seen, valued, and felt. And it is in this moment that the most human temptation arises. To seek the other, to write to them, to call them, to insist, to ask for an explanation, a sign, or closure. But what if I told you that true reconnection does not happen by going outward, but by going inward? What if, instead of chasing the other, you cultivated such authentic and powerful energy that your very vibrations started to be felt in silence? Carl Jung wrote in his work, Man and His Symbols, that what you deny enslaves you, what you accept transforms you. This moment of disconnection is not your enemy. It is a door, an opportunity for transmutation. Because love does not end, it transforms. And the first step to reconnecting with someone who has left is to reconnect with yourself, not from need, but from recognition, from the memory of your own value. Here, we will not talk about strategies for manipulation or power games. We will talk about presence, resonance, and how the energy of your existence can become so heavy that it is felt even in silence. Because when someone distances themselves, it is not only the bond that breaks, but the image that person had of you that starts to fade away. And if you could rebuild that image, not with words, but with vibration, imagine that you are the vibration, and that every thought you hold, every emotion you feed, every internal sensation sends out a signal. That signal doesn't need words. It doesn't need contact. It just needs to be consistent, authentic. Because the human subconscious, as Jung pointed out, does not respond to what we say, but to what we feel deeply as real. And this emotional authenticity is perceived even at a distance. The beginning of this path is not easy because it goes against the impulse to control, to secure, to look for answers. But this is where the power of conscious intention comes in. When you stop looking outward to be seen and start looking inward to see, something begins to change. It's as if the energy starts to condense, becoming dense, magnetic, unforgettable. And here, in this internal space, you become strong, where you stop waiting for the other. And strangely enough, the other begins to feel you, not because you are doing something for it, but because you simply are. And this being leaves an imprint. Because while attachment screams desperation, authenticity whispers mystery. And in the inner world, what whispers with truth has more impact than what screams with anxiety. And so, this journey begins, not with a call, but with an internal decision, not searching for answers, but becoming the answer yourself. There is intention and trust. You project your presence as one lights a candle in a dark room. You may not see the light reflect immediately, but the candle is there, burning, emitting. And that energetic emission, if it is constant and genuine, begins to resonate. You can accompany this practice with conscious breathing. Inhale from gratitude, exhale from love, not from desire, but from recognition. Because you don't project from what you lack, you project from what you are. And if you are presence, tenderness, stability, that's what the other person will begin to feel without knowing why. Jung also points out in Psychological Types that the collective unconscious shares symbols, images, and impressions. What you emit, especially if it carries emotional weight, enters that symbolic field and can indeed be perceived, not by the rational mind, but by the emotional body, the one that reacts to a song, a perfume, a dream of someone who is no longer there. That body holds memories far deeper than logic. Additionally, this practice strengthens your own field, reaffirms you, and reminds you, because by sending that vibration consciously, you are also speaking to yourself. You are telling your system, I am present, I am connected, my energy matters. It is not just a signal outward, it is an anchor inward. Empathic projection is not an act of control. It is a form of conscious love. It is letting your energy travel without forcing anything, but with clarity about who you are. It is an emotional letter with no envelope or address, but with a destination. And most importantly, it is an exercise with yourself. Because every time you do this, you also see yourself. You also connect with that part of you that loves, that feels, that vibrates. It's not just for the other to feel you. It's for you to remember the power you have when you stop chasing and start emitting. Thus, in the silence, in the stillness, your presence begins to become present, not through words, but through sensations. And those sensations leave a mark. Conscious detachment is one of the most powerful acts there are, but also one of the most misunderstood. Many believe that detaching means not caring, cutting off at the root, becoming cold, but that is not the case. Conscious detachment is not closing your heart. It is opening it without fear of emptiness. It is knowing how to be with yourself, even when everything inside you wants to run toward the other. Carl Jung said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, that loneliness does not come from not having people nearby, but from not being able to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. Conscious detachment allows you precisely that, to communicate with yourself, to listen to what's important without external noise. It is not indifference, it is a higher form of presence. When someone distances themselves, the automatic impulse is to fill that space, to look for answers, to insist, to secure. But conscious detachment does the opposite. Instead of running toward the other, you stop with yourself. You sit in that uncomfortable silence, and there's something magical happens. That silence begins to have a voice, and that voice speaks to you about yourself. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about not acting from lack. True detachment is energetic. It is knowing how to withdraw, without anger, without revenge, without contained pain. It is stepping back, not because you have lost, but because you understand that your presence also has value, that your silence is not empty, but a container of strength. Conscious detachment also activates mystery, and mystery is the fertile ground for emotional memory. When you become predictable, the other sees you as a constant, without nuance. But when you withdraw with presence, without resentment, what remains is not a wound, but an echo. And that echo resonates, not in logic, but in emotion. The mind tries to resolve, but the soul remembers. It doesn't remember the facts, it remembers the sensations. And if your absence is imbued with authenticity, with love without demand, with truth without noise, it will be felt, because there is nothing more powerful than a presence that is not physically there, but vibrates intensely. This practice requires patience. It requires courage, because there will be moments when you will want to give in, to right, to justify. But this is where you must take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I seeking momentary relief, or am I holding space for deep transformation? It's not about not feeling. It's about feeling without reacting from urgency. You can help yourself with simple rituals, writing what you feel and then burning it. Take deep breaths every time you feel the urge to move your body in order to release the emotion. But above all, you need to remember this. Your worth does not decrease because someone walks away. Your presence does not disappear because you're not in contact. Moreover, the more authentic your detachment is, the more powerful your footprint will be. Because detachment is not forgetting, it is respect. It is a way of telling the other, I trust my energy so much that I don't need to force anything. And that trust is felt, because there is nothing more magnetic than someone who doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't pressure, just vibrates in their truth. Jung also mentioned in The Ego and the Unconscious that healing can only occur when the lost symbol is rediscovered. In detachment, you become the symbol, that unresolved mystery, that emotional enigma, which, instead of disappearing, becomes a presence that pulses in the silence. And while there is a natural fear of losing someone by taking distance, true power lies in trusting that what was built within me is stronger than any word, that what is authentic does not need to be forced, that if that person is aligned with you, they will return, not because you called them, but because they felt you. Conscious detachment is giving yourself power. It is reminding yourself that you do not need to chase anything, because what is real, what vibrates with you, what belongs to you by frequency, returns, or never truly leaves. And if it doesn't return, it's because you yourself will have grown so much that you no longer need it to return. Thus, silence becomes a message, absence a vibration, and your energy an echo that is not forgotten. Emotional emission is one of the most transformative practices when done from authenticity. It's not about wishing for the other to return. It's about feeling, vibrating, emitting such a genuine frequency that external reality begins to adapt to your internal state. Because the universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are, and you are what you feel. Sustained. Carl Jung, in his practice of psychotherapy, wrote, "We are not what we want to be, we are what we deeply feel." This principle is key. Your subconscious does not respond to empty affirmations. It responds to the real vibration, to the embodied emotion. That's why emotional emission doesn't work if it's done from lack, desperation, or illusion. It works when it is done from gratitude. Each night before going to sleep, sit in silence. Place one hand on your chest, breathe deeply, and begin to imagine, not that the other returns, but that the connection is already restored. Feel the warmth in your chest, the calm in your body, the peace in your soul. Imagine yourself being loved, understood, embraced, but most importantly, feel it as if it is already happening. This is not self-deception. It is emotional training, because the subconscious cannot distinguish between what is real and what is intensely felt. If you manage to hold an emotion for long enough, your energy field changes, and by changing your field, your vibration becomes a new magnet. It's not about imagining conversations, scenarios, or detailed reconciliations. It's about feeling the emotional quality you want to live. Love, respect, calm, unity. And by feeling it, you emit, and by emitting it, you transform, not the other, but yourself. It's important that this practice is anchored in gratitude, not as a mental obligation, but as a real state. Thank you for this love that already vibrates within me. Thank you for this encounter that is already occurring on the subtle plane. Thank you because I feel complete, whole, loved. There is no pleading, there is no anxiety, only emotional certainty. Jung observed in The Ego and the Unconscious that emotion is the starting point of all psychic change. Emotional emission doesn't seek to manipulate, it seeks to generate change from within. When you change your internal state in a sustained way, reality has no choice but to reflect it in some way. Perhaps not as you expect, but always in coherence with what you vibrate. And although at first it may seem artificial, over time it becomes a refuge. Because while everyone out there seeks answers, you become the answer. While others react to the void, you fill your space with deliberate emotion. And that is felt. It is felt from a distance, because the soul recognizes vibrations faster than words. This exercise is even more powerful if you accompany it with small daily actions that reinforce that vibration. Listen to music that lifts you up, move with gentleness, surround yourself with beauty, speak to yourself with sweetness. All of this creates emotional coherence, and coherence is the clearest language of the universe. And yes, the other can feel it, not because you are projecting a mental image, but because you are modulating your field, and every field interacts with the fields of others. There is no way to avoid it. If someone has been connected to you, they will continue to resonate with you on some level. And if your vibration changes, that resonance also changes. Do not expect an immediate reaction. Do not make this a trick. Do not measure results. This practice is done for you, for your peace, for your coherence. It is a form of vibrational meditation, an art of feeling without asking, of radiating without controlling. It is unconditional love, first towards yourself. Carl Jung also wrote that life not lived is a sickness from which one can die, and how many of us are alive but anesthetized. Emitting emotion is to come back to life, not from drama, but from consciousness, from the ability to create your own emotional atmosphere. And if the other at some point feels this change in you, it will not be because you sought it, but because your frequency can no longer be ignored, because you have stopped being a memory and have become a vibrant presence, invisible, yes, but absolutely real. Emotional emission is therefore a way of returning to yourself, of restoring yourself, of being loved before receiving it. And from there, everything changes. Not because you push it, but because you emanate it, because the soul recognizes what is authentic. Silent affirmations are not simple motivational phrases that you repeat without soul. They are energetic mantras, internal pieces of resonance that shape your vibrational field when you repeat them with awareness, from the body, from emotion. They are not made to convince the other. They are made to remind you of who you are. Carl Jung, in The Modern Man in Search of a Soul, explained that we do not see the world as it is, but as we are. And how we are is largely built by the thoughts we repeatedly cultivate. Silent affirmations are seeds that, when planted with presence, transform your inner terrain. They do not alter what you are, they reveal it. These phrases are not said aloud. They are whispered in the mind while you breathe deeply, while you walk, while you remain silent. They become an internal pulse that accompanies you. And most importantly, they ask for nothing. They demand nothing. They simply affirm. They feel like inner certainties, not external pleas. For example, I am present even if I'm not close. My energy leaves a trace. I am remembered because I vibrate, right? I don't need to be seen to be felt. I choose to vibrate authentically. My absence is also a presence. I trust the power of my field. My frequency speaks for me. I am aligned with what I deserve. Each of these phrases acts as a recalibration, because in moments of doubt, impulse, or need, you can return to them and regain your center. Not to ignore what you feel, but to reconnect with your deeper, wiser version. They are small anchors that hold you up when everything seems to shake. Repeating them is not mechanical, it's ritual. You do it when you wake up, before sleeping, in the midst of intense emotion. And with each repetition, the phrase begins to stop being a thought and becomes a frequency that is noticed, that vibrates, that communicates without speaking. Jung also talked about how the unconscious operates with symbols, images, and repetitions. Silent affirmations work because the subconscious loves repetition. But not just any repetition. The one that comes loaded with emotional meaning, the one you feel is true, the one that, even without external proof, already vibrates in you as certainty. And it's not about repeating to attract something. It's about repeating to do something, to remind yourself that you are not waiting for anything. You are choosing something you don't need to search for outside, that your field is already working, already emitting, already leaving a trace. These affirmations are the antidote to urgency, to emptiness, to the feeling that you need something more to be whole. Because when you repeat, my energy leaves a trace. You are not saying someone has to return. You are recognizing that you are already leaving something. You are trusting your echo. Make this an intimate habit. It is your vibrational prayer. And the most beautiful thing is that you don't need anyone to hear it, because the soul hears, the universe hears, and most importantly, you hear. As you make them yours, the phrases transform. Some will stop making sense, and others will appear spontaneously. Listen to them. Feel which ones are born from you. Because when an affirmation comes from true emotion, its impact multiplies. Do not underestimate the power of the unspoken. Do not underestimate the power of the invisible. What you repeat silently with intention becomes constant vibration, and that vibration builds realities. Conscious writing is not an act of venting. It's a ritual of focus. You don't write to beg, you write to declare, to anchor yourself in how you want to feel, to reprogram your vibration through the written word, which is one of the most direct forms of communication with your subconscious. Carl Jung said in the practice of psychotherapy that writing is a way of revealing the unconscious to the conscious mind. When you write with intention, you are not simply releasing thoughts. You are giving structure to your energy. You are deciding what you will feed in your vibrational field. And that has a powerful impact on how you feel, on how you position yourself in front of the world, and on how you experience yourself. The technique is simple, but profound. Each day or whenever you need it, write about how you want to feel, not what you want to obtain, not who you want to come back, but how you want your inner state to be. Examples: I want to feel peaceful, confident, at ease with what was and what is. I allow myself to live from fullness, not from waiting. Today, I choose to vibrate in certainty, in dignity, in love towards myself. I reconnect with the feeling of being enough. I remember my value without the need for external confirmation. I choose to dwell in calm, even when the outside doesn't respond. My energy is clear, and because of that, my life aligns. These phrases become affirmations, yes, but with greater depth because they have passed through your body, your pulse, your pen. It's not the same to think as it is to write. Writing crystallizes, anchors, declares. Moreover, this practice creates a space of intimacy with yourself, a refuge, a written truth that brings you back to the present. Because many times, we are so focused on what happened or what could happen that we forget what is happening inside us. Writing brings it back. Jung also stated that there is no transformation from darkness to light without emotion, and conscious writing allows you to observe your emotions without getting trapped in them. You see them, name them, transform them, because when you declare how you want to feel, you take on an active role. You are no longer a victim of what you feel. You are the creator of your emotional state. You can have a notebook dedicated only to this, your vibrational notebook. It's not just any journal. It's a space for creation. Each page written with this intention becomes an extension of your field. It's your way of dialoguing with the universe, with your energy, with your essence. And most importantly, you don't do it for anyone else to read. You do it to remind yourself. Because when what you feel becomes clear on paper, it also becomes clear in your vibration. And that is noticed, that is felt from a distance, in the way you move, speak, and exist in the world. This practice also works for those moments when anxiety rises. Instead of writing to that person, write to yourself. Declare what you need, what you deserve, what you choose, because if you manage to hold your center on paper, it will be easier to hold it in life. Writing is an act of power, not as imposition, but as declaration. And when you become conscious of what you write, you become conscious of what you vibrate. And when you vibrate with intention, the world begins to respond with coherence. The body does not lie. While the mind rationalizes and creates stories, the body vibrates, feels, and stores memories. That's why moving it with intention is one of the most direct ways to unblock stuck emotions and elevate your frequency. Body movement is not only physical, it's energetic. It's vibrational. Carl Jung, in The Self and the Unconscious, stated that any form of psychic energy, if not expressed, becomes a symptom. And often, those symptoms manifest in the body: tension, anxiety, fatigue, contractions. That's why moving is not an aesthetic activity. It's emotional medicine. It's a way to channel what has no outlet through words. You don't need a complex routine. You only need attention, intention, and breathing. You can start the day by stretching your body slowly, feeling each muscle, breathing deeply. You can dance alone in your room, letting the body express itself without choreography, without judgment. You can practice deep breathing with gentle movements that accompany the natural rhythm of your emotion. Every time you move your body with awareness, you are telling your system, I am present, I am releasing, I am choosing to feel differently. And that energetic signal is more powerful than 1,000 positive thoughts, because the body has its own language, one that resonates far beyond words. Body movement also breaks patterns. You always react in the same way to an emotion, for example, by closing off, immobilizing, contracting. When you move, you create a shift, because if something is true, it doesn't need to be pushed, it only needs to be felt. And in that non-doing, you strengthen yourself, you cleanse yourself, you reconnect, and from there, everything that is meant to return will return. Not by pressure, but by resonance. Non-doing, if strategic, is an art. And like any art, it is cultivated every day.